I'd like to welcome everyone to the Friday, June 2nd, 2023 meeting of the Economic Development Corporation and a town hall that we have laid out for everyone this evening. I appreciate the attendance by everyone. It's a great turnout. This shows the importance, I think, of this project to everyone, and I can't thank you enough for showing up. At this time, I'd like to, we'll have a moment of silence and prayer, and then we'll have the Pledge of Allegiance. So if everyone could stand, please. Dear Heavenly Father, thank you for the privilege of living another day. Please bless each and every one here tonight with respect, patience, wisdom, and truth as we go about the business that impacts all of us. Bless our first responders and military and all who keep us safe. In Jesus' name we pray, amen. Amen. The pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. You may be seated. My name is Brian Kroll. I live at 111 Lost Forest Road. I am the Vice President of the EDC Board of Directors. I want to thank everyone that's here, citizens of Gun Barrel, our city council members and new city council members. Congratulations to you all, and all of our board members. I'd like to introduce our panel for you guys this evening. From my left, we have Joseph Mundo. He is our engineer. It's okay to clap. Joe's a good guy. Next to him is Eve Hoppen and Stephen Haynes, who are the developers and designers of the project. And seated next to me is a very important gentleman, Jeff Moore, our city attorney.
EDC attorney.
And Robin Sikora, our director, who has had a real hand in this and is very, very instrumental in all that we do in this city as far as the Economic Development Corporation goes. I just want to lead off real quick. I want to make tonight about Pier 334. And I know there's a lot that's going on. This is a very passionate project, and I know that with a lot of people. And it impacts a lot of people. And some positively, some negatively, and there's no doubt about that. But without this kind of a turnout, without dialogue and communication, we're not going to get very far either way with this project. So kudos to everyone for showing up and having a say in what's going to take place. But I want to make it about the project and nothing personal towards anyone or any person that you may have had some issues with. I know there's a lot going on social media and Nextdoor and all that stuff, but let's make it about the project. Let's have tonight be something we can all leave here with pride and not be ashamed of. So with that, I just want to say that the growth of Gun Barrel City is always first and foremost, and that's what we're about. That's what the Economic Development Corporation is here for. We're here to see that we positively affect the town of Gun Barrel with qualified businesses, help the existing businesses, and help create an atmosphere that is attractive to people that want to move here, both permanently, for fun, vacation, recreation, but have their businesses here also. So, and with that comes growing pains, the need for infrastructure, fire, police, animal control. My wife's about to kill me feeding all these stray cats. It's about to kill me. It's an issue. And Gun Barrel, the one thing that was always told to me when I first got here is this is the hub of the lake. So as a hub of the lake, I think if we need to be leaders as far as that goes. And with streets the way they are, there needs to be more traffic on the lake. This is a project that would help enhance some of that also. But my fear is also that knowing that 45%, this was a number that was thrown out to me, of our total sales tax revenue for our city and to run our city is tied up in Lowe's and Walmart. And if someone were to open I'm just going to throw out names, a Target or a Home Depot in a town very close to us, that could be very detrimental to us. And it's very scary. And it's just, you know, we run on a tight budget, as everybody does, especially in these times. But my fear is that if we don't have a project of this nature that can positively affect, and yes, there's going to be some negatives to it, growing pains, and we have to work through those together. But my fear is that we will back ourselves into a corner, and if we make this so undesirable for this particular individual, will other individuals want to come here at all? I don't want to set a precedent that makes us look bad in any form or fashion. Is there going to be some pros and cons to all this? Absolutely. But just remember, too, I know this because I've sat in a lot of these meetings, and I know that most everyone here that you had conversations with, both positive and negatively, we're all basically for it. And I know they probably want to know about monies and things of this nature, but also, let's remember this, okay? It's okay to have a question. But what I tell a lot of my guys that work for me is that I'm okay with a question, I'm okay with a complaint, but try to come with a solution and an idea along with it. Just don't complain, because that's not productive for anyone. The use of local vendors and contractors here in Gun Barrel, I know that's first and foremost on the developer's mind. That's going to be a huge influx of money and opportunity and labor to be used on this project. The incredible tourist destination, families, corporations, that goes without being said. But the total revenue, I mean, this could almost exceed in a year what we have with all of our existing numbers. So again, remember that. Nobody ever wants a property tax here, but we don't want to back ourselves in a corner where we're unable to pay for, again, police, fire, our city workers, and City Hall. A lot of these people worked for a long, long time without a whole lot of accolades or let me say, patting of the pockets, okay? And they're very, very deserving of that. It's a thankless job. Local jobs, maybe 40, 50, 60 jobs. And seasonal, who knows? The increased traffic on the lake is a real benefit to everyone. Pride that everyone here, good, bad, or indifferent, at some point in time, we're all going to have a part of this. And we're all going to be a part of it, either positively or negatively. And that's just the reality of it all. But please, again, make this a positive night. And if your view has changed on this, that's great. But no one here, I think, believes that Gun Barrel doesn't need something like this at some point in time. And I just, personally, I think this is a wonderful time for us. But again, I want to leave here with everyone being proud of themselves and being a proud member of Gun Barrel City. I know I got out of Dallas as fast as I could because I wanted to be a part of something like this. And my wife told me I couldn't complain anymore, so I had to become a part of it. And I'm glad I have. And I want to thank everybody for their time. At this time, I think would you like, Robin, an update on Pier 334, the development from each of the panelists?
If you would like to update us, that'd be great. We have a printed update as well that is available up here on the counter.
Okay, so we will move to citizens' comments. I want to read this real quickly.
We have some pre-submitted questions, too.
The purpose of this item is to allow citizens an opportunity to address the panelists on items that are listed on the agenda or items that are not listed on the agenda. Any person desiring to make a public comment must first fill out a form stating their question or comment. Individual citizens' comments are limited to 3 minutes. Any response from a member of the panel to non-agenda items is limited to a statement of specific factual information. A recitation of the existing policy or direction to staff for follow-up. Presiding officer shall have the authority to provide a verbal warning and/or excuse from the meeting a speaker who uses abusive, harassing, threatening, or defamatory language, or who engages in disorderly conduct that disrupts, disturbs, or otherwise impedes the orderly conduct of this meeting.
Do we want to begin with some pre-submitted questions, or do we want to start with live questions?
Let's go with some of the pre-submitted.
Okay. Some of the questions that were specific to me were, how much money does the EDC have? So what I can tell you is our Prosperity Bank is our main operating accounts. We have 3 accounts there. They have a current total as of April of $1,075,338. If anyone would like to look at our bank account totals and the last 3 years of EDC sales tax revenue, it is available here. A lot of times people will make comments that the EDC is broke, and that is not really based on any type of facts. The sales tax revenue income that we have covers by far every expenditure we have, and that's why we loan out grants and loans with the rest of the money, with a good amount of backup as well. How much is Big Chief property costing the EDC each month? We have 2 loans on the properties that are involved in this project. They are paid annually and quarterly, but if you break it out by month, it is it's $18,000 per month. Then what can be done with EDC funds? There's basically 4 things: business retention, new business and new sales tax revenue, new jobs, and community betterment. Do you have any questions? Anybody else? Okay.
As far as can you hear me? Jeff Moore, I see some fingers pointing up.
Yeah.
Maybe I just need to get closer to the mic.
All the way up.
My name is Jeff Moore. I'm a partner with the law firm of Brown and Hoffmeister out of Richardson, Texas. And I've been the EDC attorney since, 2004. Prior to that, I was with the Texas Attorney General's office, headed up the municipal affairs section of the Attorney General's office from 1999 to 2003. That's where I got introduced to the, what's now called the Type A and Type B sales tax. Back then, it was called 4A and 4B, and part of our duties were to part of my duties were to put together a handbook on economic development laws for Texas cities. That was a very popular handbook. Had to, attend committee hearings that dealt with legislation that would amend, the various economic development tools that cities have. One of the, during the 2001 legislative session, there was a push to put criminal penalties into the statute. Out of that came a requirement to do sales tax training. The chairman of the House Economic Development Committee at the time, Jim Solis, he was from down the valley. He authored a bill to come up with training seminars. And so when I was at the AG's office in 2001, had to help come up with these sales tax training seminars, such as, that question there, what can you spend the money on? Because there was a push way back when that if you spent the money inappropriately, somebody should go to jail. And economic development can be kind of a nebulous term. Is that redoing a street? Is that doing a water line, sewer line? Is that what is economic development? So that can be in one community different from another. So had to help come up with those training seminars, and I left the AG's office, went to Brown and Hoffmeister in 2003, and I'm going to say I think it was Rita Evans, Patsy Black, way back when. They roped me into serving as an attorney. I've been happy to serve for the last 19, 20 years as EDC attorney. I do represent, probably over 40 EDCs, economic development corporations, serve as city attorney for 5 cities. And hotel projects, I've done a number of hotel projects, and with COVID, there has been a lot of delays, a lot of funding issues. I'm city attorney in Roanoke, right next to Fort Worth. We started working on a hotel project in 2016 on the Peabody Hotel, and that's going to be the hotel in Roanoke. They have one in Memphis. They do a duck march. I don't know if anybody's familiar with the Peabody Hotel in Memphis, but hopefully one day there'll be one in Roanoke. They still have not broken ground yet. We're still dealing with financing issues. So, that's a 7-year, almost 7-year ordeal, I guess. COVID really put, the skids on, the hotel financing. For that project, we're also dealing with some state incentives under the Chapter 351 of the tax code that allows cities to get the state hotel occupancy tax and also the state sales tax to use towards the hotel project. Only certain cities are authorized to do that. Roanoke is one of them, and so we've had to, figure out the financing and then lenders just have not been willing to lend given COVID, from a few years ago. I was involved in another project, and when COVID hit, the bank, that they had done loan agreements to provide the money for the hotel. COVID hits. The bank said, hey, that's a force majeure event. We're pulling our funding. We're not going to fund the hotel, and that killed that project. So I just kind of give that as a backdrop that, hotel projects, I think all around the state, they've taken time to get done. In Roanoke, we're still working on 7 years. I guess I'll go back to that first question on what can you use the sales tax for. That's that training seminar that we had to come up with back in 2001. I've still been doing the training ever since, and really the legislature usually tinkers with the statute every 2 years, but for Gun Barrel City as a Type B EDC, there's certain statutes, and I'll mention the main statutes that I see economic development done. And they're in the local government code, either Chapter 505 or 501 of the local government code. Really, 501.101 allows cities or EDCs, Type B EDCs, to provide money for primary job employers. And that's a defined term. It usually means a manufacturer or maybe a warehouse, a distribution center project. You have to be a primary job employer. If you have that come to town, such as a warehouse or a manufacturer, you can provide them land, buildings, equipment, targeted infrastructure, monies to do the project. And so, you can provide them about anything. There's another provision under 501.103 of the local government code that for a new business or it's either a new business or an existing business that's expanding, you can provide infrastructure. I'm going to say over the years, we've done a number of these types of projects where you can provide, the street, the water, the sewer, the electric, the drainage. The statute says site improvements. So there's a whole host of infrastructure needs that Gun Barrel City EDC can provide for a new business or an expanded business. Then you get over to 505 of the local government code. There's an initial statute, and part of this project, we relied on this one statute to do some of the assistance. In that it was originally written for the city of Arlington back in 1991. That was the first Type B, or back then called 4B project. And it basically for the ballpark in Arlington, the Texas Ranger Stadium. It allowed the Type B corporation to fund that, athletic state, the ballpark. But it does more. That statute does more than that. It allows you to do, professional amateur sports, athletic fields, entertainment, tourists, and public parks. A lot of cities have done public parks. So that statute has been referred to as more quality of life projects. Another, I guess, big statute, and I'll probably stop there, is under 505.158. That allows cities for under 20,000 population to do pretty much anything. It has to promote a new business or expand an existing business. And if it does that, you can provide land, buildings, equipment, targeted infrastructure, expenditures, money, but you can provide a lot of assistance under that statute. Now, these statutes sometimes get amended, and so when I do these training seminars around the state, sometimes I get the question, well, so and so did this project. Why can't we do that project? And it may be due to population. Some of these bills have, population brackets within the statute. There's a distinction between whether you're a Type A or Type B corporation. And so that's really drilling down into the statute. But, yeah, the EDC here can do a lot of stuff. The questions when when Robin calls me, usually or emails me, I'll say, well, what's the project? Is it, what are they going to do? Is it a primary job employer? Is it a new business? Is it an expanding business? And for me, I'm trying to figure out which statute fits. And so, for a hotel project, you have a number of statutes you can look to fund a hotel project, and it's really all the ones I just mentioned are the, authorized statutes to do portions of this type of project. And so I guess, as a backdrop, I just kind of wanted to fill in that question. But then I did have 3 other questions, I think, that were for me, that were pre-submitted. If the loan is not passed, if the loan agreement is not passed, will that cancel the entire development? And the answer is no. We still have some other existing agreements that are in place. Now, whether that new agreement causes issues for the project, that's a different question, but we still have existing agreements already in place. We did a couple years ago, I think in 2021, we did a loan agreement, then that got amended. So those are already existing agreements, and it would not cancel those agreements. Another question I received was, why was the Big Chief property transferred without all project funding verified as being in place? I can't speak to the verification, but the agreement called for, it's the amended and restated agreement, and I don't know if that's one of the handouts there.
It is.
Which was approved June 21 of 2022. It provided that we convey that land within 90 days, and the Big Chief properties, I guess the 1.72 acre tract, that we convey that within 90 days of the effective date of that agreement. So I think it was approved around June 21. So roughly by October 1st, under that agreement, we had to convey the property. Another question I received is who is making the payments on property that the EDC no longer owns? And under Section 4A of that amended and restated agreement, it provides that Pier 334 makes the payments. So out of the, there's 2 different entities. It's Pier 334 that makes the payments. And I think those are the questions that were really for me. Uh-huh. And so I guess maybe I'll pass the baton.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Any questions anybody has?
Well, they're going to talk in a minute.
All right. Joe, would you like to speak to question number 3, which is describe the steps that are required before groundbreaking can happen, please?
Yes, I'll do that. I'll stand because either I'm very short, which I'm not really tall, but that chair is very low, and I can't see you over this. So my name is Joe Mundo, and I work for Mundo and Associates. And that's not me, that's my wife, so that's why I phrase it that way. We are civil engineering, city planning, and economic development consultants. We're located in Rockwall. Now, I point that out only for the purpose of noting that approximately 10 years ago, City of Rockwall, and I believe the EDC was involved as well, went through a process of a waterfront development project with a hotel, a Hilton hotel, and food shops and what have you. It's called the Harbor, and it's right off of I-30 at the Lake Ray Hubbard in Rockwall. And regardless of whether anybody likes the food there or doesn't like the food, likes what's playing at the theater, etc. Every day, every dollar that is spent at the harbor, and there's a lot of them spent, the city and the EDC get a revenue. They get a sales tax. And so really that's, from a city viewpoint in Rockwall, that's what that project is all about. It's a revenue stream to the city. Beyond that, you don't have to like the colors or like the menus, but it's a great revenue stream. But we do like the colors and we do like the menu for the most part. With respect to our role here in the city of Gun Barrel City, I believe we have been doing engineering work here for this city for approximately 15 years. The basis, we're now doing development reviews. The basis for the development reviews is published on your website. If you look at the home page of your website, there's a little set of 8 boxes up in the upper left corner, and the lower left box, I have to put my glasses on now, but it says city ordinances. And if you click on that box, you get a page that looks like this, and it says Code of City Ordinances. And under the list of chapters, under Title 9, I'm sorry, Title 15, 10.5, 15, it's Roman numerals. It says land usage, and that's the only one that sounds like that, so that tells you that's where to look. And if you click on that, you get to another set of windows, and there's 2 sections, one called 155 subdivision regulations and one called 156 zoning code. And inside of those are also an item called design standards. Not working?
It is, but not well. I'd love to hear what you're saying.
Oh, I'm sorry. I apologize. I turned this on, but I guess it didn't work. Okay, so in any event, if you go to your homepage and you drill down to sections 155 and 156, you'll find all the rules that you need to know if you want to develop something in the city of Gun Barrel City, from platting to site plan approval to drainage design. If you are a developer, you won't like most of them because they make you spend money that you probably otherwise don't think you want to spend. However, if you're the neighbor to the developer, you'll love them because they protect your property from being adversely impacted by that development. Particularly if the development is uphill from you, then these regulations will really help you from getting flooded out, etc. Now, how does this all apply to the Pier 334 project? It applies because the city has hired us to do the review, the technical review for compliance against the city ordinances. Just to note, Mundo and Associates have absolutely no authority to vary the requirements of those ordinances. We're not asked our opinion. We're asked to review against the ordinances. Many developers come to the city with projects and they want to do it the way they did it in Irving or the way they did it in Plano, or I didn't do it in Dallas, and et cetera, et cetera. And you have to patiently remind them that you're in the city of Gun Barrel City, and please go to the website and read it, because you can read it the same as I can. But be that as it may, that's what we have to do. As far as this project goes, it involves pretty much everything that's in 155 and 156 and the design standards in between. It's an assemblage of land, of several parcels of land into essentially one, and that's called platting, and that's in here. It's also a site plan review and approval, and that essentially is looking at, in plan view, all of the details of the development, relative to setbacks from the city right-of-way line, sidewalk, pedestrian and traffic flow, emergency access flow, accessibility, Texas accessibility standards, which are in some cases even more strict than the ADA standards. Stormwater management plan, very important. Street widths, et cetera, et cetera. It's all of that detail. A lot of it is from a developer standpoint, when he draws a site plan or when they draw a site plan, they think a lot of this is putting the cart before the horse. And in some respects it is, but that's the way the ordinances are written. And it's not such a bad idea to put the cart before the horse. It just says that you have to get the cart ready. You have to identify a lot of the details that everybody would like to say, oh, we'll work that out later. And you know what happens then. Later never comes. So this way, in the city of Gun Barrel City, that's worked out before the fact, not after the fact. And it's fairly effective. We have been working with the applicant, and in this case, that's the Robin at the EDC and their developer, and we've had exchanges of plans for several months, and we're working through the site plan process, which really drives the platting, a lot of the details on the platting. This is an unusual area where Big Chief Drive, essentially, as it goes past the two parcels that front on the lake, Big Chief Drive does not stay in its right-of-way, but it sits on part of the parcels that are planned for development. Now, somebody could say, well, just move the street back. Well, you know, there might not really be all the right-of-way you'd like to have there. And so through the development process, right-of-way is going to be given by the applicant to the city in order to get a uniform right-of-way along the existing street. And that takes from the development space. In exchange, so to speak, setback lines for the building relative to the property need to be adjusted. Similarly, eventually, Big Chief Drive intersection with State Highway 334 wants to be relocated to, I guess that would be the east, to the right. And that will require right-of-way. So it goes past one of the development parcels, and it takes developable land, in this case that's to be a parking lot, it removes parking spaces available to the development for the relocated street. Accordingly, when you look at the parking requirements for the development, it's reasonable to make adjustments to the demand for to the required parking, because there has been an exchange in order to realign the street. And then TxDOT says if you move the intersection, which TxDOT is supporting because they feel it will be better to have that intersection further to the east than right off the end of the bridge. And there'll be room for a decel lane, excuse me. And so it'll just be a better, safer intersection. And it actually is going to be laid out for traffic signalization, not necessarily opening day, but at some point when the traffic flows can be warranted and funding can be found. All in all, it'll make for a much better access to whatever is going to be put on what's now essentially two big barren concrete slabs. Those two slabs today don't generate a penny for the city of Gun Barrel City. All I can say as a resident of the city of Rockwall, having a waterfront-related hotel food complex is a pretty good tax revenue generator. As far as the details go, we're just working it out, submission by submission. The applicant sends us information, we review it, we make comments, we send it back. They address those comments, resubmit, and it's an iterative process. We will have probably 2 more iterations, I would guess. So let's say this is June and July, as just a guesstimate forecast. In that, about at the end of July, we should have a site plan that meets the requirements of your ordinance to recommend to planning and zoning, and a plat that supports that site plan to recommend to planning and zoning, and a plan development zoning change, a zoning change from the R2, I believe it is, general business, to a plan development to incorporate the adjusted building setbacks, the adjusted parking requirements, and the movement of the intersection, and all of that legal detail that has to get built into the plat. So that'll all get written into the plan development zoning. We should have those 3 documents ready. I'm best guess now, end of July, to recommend to planning and zoning for approval. Then it'll be up to planning and zoning. Following that, it would be up to the city council. Nominally, planning and zoning, all other things being equal, would be about a 30-day process. And then typically, city council would also be about a 30-day process. So that would be 2 + 1 + 1. I guess we're in September, I think, June, July, August, September. So maybe about the end of September, if planning and zoning approves and city council approves, everything will be complete. From our standpoint, hopefully by the end of July, we'll be able to have those documents recommended for approval. That's our role, and that's the steps and the time frame.
Thank you.
Any questions, I'll be delighted to answer them before I sit back down and hide behind this wall here.
Mr. Mundo, thank you very much. I hope that clarifies any questions you may have had about the role of the engineer and where we are with groundbreaking and what have you. I'd now like to move on and invite Stephen Haynes, who is the developer, and we will address some pre-prescribed questions that you guys have had for him. So I'll turn it now over to Stephen. Stephen, question number 2 says the advertisements show a hotel, retail space, splash pads, etc. Do we have a plan of what will be built first, in what order they will be built?
We do. First, I'm Stephen Haynes. I live in Trinidad. I've been down here at the lake since 2002 and a resident of Dallas since... Hi, sorry. My name is Stephen Haynes. I live in Trinidad, Texas. I moved full-time out of Dallas 2 years ago, and... You still can't hear me?
It's already turned up.
Okay.
The volume's as high as it can go.
You want this?
Yeah.
Easier for you.
There you go.
Hi, is that better? Sorry. My name is Stephen Haynes. I live in Trinidad, Texas. Came here from Dallas a couple of years ago. I've been a resident at the lake with some properties since 2001. I am the manager for YNS Services. I am the CEO of Haynes Investments. And my role with YNS is that I facilitate the financing of their projects, and I'm a business development manager for them. For this specific project, yes, there is an order for things to be built, and structurally we need to take care of the waterfront first. So the first thing we would do is reroute all of the concrete, and we would dredge out so we have a deeper area for the marina to be in. So once we get the waterfront kind of recarved, we'll take out the boat, the boat ramp, thank you. And we would put a wall all the way across with a promenade around the entire project so people could fish and walk and eat and visit all around that water area. And there'd be a new marina built and the marina would go in at the end of the project, but all the waterfront development would be done first. The second thing is that we would build the hotel, at least vertically, and do everything we could after foundation-wise and landscaping around it so that it would be the first to be done, and then it would minimize any impact to the residents of Jeffrey Circle. And it would also act as a buffer for the rest of the construction. And then we just move through the site plan, and we would do the amphitheater, the splash park, so they're open to the public, as we are finishing off the retail pavilion. And then the finish out on the inside would take a little bit longer, but once the structures were up, we'd be able to reroute the roads, and that would be the last of the projects, where we would move the opening from where the current opening is, roughly 1,200 feet east towards here, and put in a 3-lane exit and entrance with a deceleration lane, so you could get into the property, you could access the parking lots, and use the circles and the rotundas that we'll be building to be able to drop people off at the hotel or the food pavilion and then go back and park. So that would be the plan for the construction. One other thing to be said is that we intend to reuse everything that we can. We've got an opportunity to recycle the rebar that comes out of all of the concrete that's on the site right now, and all the concrete will be crushed and used as the base for the new roads. So we won't be hauling anything away if we can possibly help it, and any dirt that comes out during the dredging will be used as fill on the property.
Thank you, Stephen. Now, our next question is number 4. On social media, there were comments that stated YNS was involved in a class action lawsuit. Can you explain what this was and what the outcome was for YNS, please?
I would love to, actually. One, YNS was never involved in a class action lawsuit, but I and Haynes Investments was. I'm actually very pleased with the outcome of it. When I graduated, after graduating from college, I went to work on Wall Street. I was an investment banker for 12 years. I left, and it was nice of my company to offer me a position to run a fund. So I moved from New York to Dallas, and I started a private equity fund. And we predominantly invested in intellectual property. And one of the investments led to, we bought a bunch of software for slot machines. And it led us to Native Americans, because at the time they were building casinos all over the United States. And we had some really cool software, and they needed our help. So we put together a fund, and we invested in tribes, specifically to help them open casinos and put slot machines in. But that led to us learning how, or being forced to build the casinos for them and build their headquarters and their town halls and their dialysis centers. So that's how we actually got into the construction business. So we're doing business with the Indians. Somewhere around 2007 and 8, we got involved in financing a business that a lot of tribes had gone into, which was consumer lending. So they were using their status as sovereign nations to be able to go online and lend money through installment loans to people all over the world. Barack Obama got elected in 2008. He started to work in 2009, and he and Elizabeth Warren decided that they didn't like installment lending. They didn't like Native American tribes very much, and all bets were off. And the trial lawyers in the United States took a direct bead on lending, consumer lending. And what they decided was that in every single loan that anyone took for a consumer loan, or when you opened a checking account like at Wells Fargo, you would get a package at the bottom that said you're able to arbitrate this problem if there is a problem, as opposed to having a lawsuit. And the trial lawyers didn't like that, because arbitration is one person at a time with an arbitrator and a decision, and they can't put together a couple hundred or a couple thousand people and create lawsuits, large lawsuits where they make a lot of money. So they decided to go after the tribes that were lending, and they couldn't actually sue the tribe because they're sovereign nations. So they decided they were going to sue the service providers and the investors. And my fund was a very large investor to the tune of about $125 million in these Native American projects. So in 2011, we started to get a lot of rumblings. By 2014, I had been sued in Vermont, North Carolina, and then Virginia and Northern California followed very quickly after that. And from 2014 until 2021, we spent an awful lot of money fighting Elizabeth Warren and a lot of these plaintiffs' attorneys. And Vermont was dismissed in 19, and North Carolina had no standing, so that was gone shortly thereafter, which left Virginia and Northern California. And I won a case, or actually it wasn't me, it was my name and a whole bunch of really smart attorneys working for Indian tribes and big banks. And in, I guess, September 16th of 2021, the Northern Appeal Court in California found in our favor. They found that arbitration can stay. So right now, on all of your documents that you guys sign, if you ever take out a loan and you're allowed to arbitrate, that's because of this case that we won. It was really important, and that was the end of it. So that's a long story, but so I appreciate your patience, but there was no class action against YNS. There was against Haynes Investments, and I actually won the case.
Thanks, Stephen. Our next question is number 5, and it's a two-part question. The petition that was taken door to door when the woman came to my house, she stated that the petition was to stop the city from loaning money to the developer because Mr. Haynes had a bad credit rating and his lender would not lend him money without this loan. Number 1, was I told the truth about the credit rating? And number 2, is it the city or the EDC loaning the money?
I have two answers for this, and then I guess Robin can discuss whether the EDC or the city is loaning the money. First, I worked very hard my entire life, and I've been very responsible, and I've been successful, and I am very happy to say that I have the highest attainable credit score that you can get. I'm going to pass that along. Wells Fargo has me, and has for many, many, many years, 850 score on my credit. It has been unblemished and perfect for a very long time, and I'm insulted by the people that spread lies like that about me. Secondly, the funding is complete. I have 2 term sheets that I've shared with the EDC and the council. One was from April 22nd of 2022, and the second was from March 3rd of 2022. One is an $18.5 million line of credit from the USDA through Thomas USAF, and the second is from Stonehill Capital for $5 million for mezzanine financing, for a total of $23 million to finance the project. And these term sheets have been in place since March of 2022.
Robin, would you like to address, is the city or the EDC loaning the money?
Yes, of course. It is a loan from the EDC, and it's not uncommon for us to do loans. We have several loans out, several businesses along Main Street at this time. So it's money that's allocated to the EDC from the city for this purpose.
And our last question will be number 6, which is, why has this project been delayed so many times?
That's actually a very good question. I don't see it as delays. We've had 2 issues, but I went through, and I've been to the EDC 9 times, presented them with 9 updates since my first update, which was October 7th of 2021. And I went back through all of my notes and these updates to the EDC, and just kind of looked through the time that it took to do everything. And the way that development worked was YNS went into the EDC because we wanted to build something in Gun Barrel City. And we were actually looking at doing some multifamily housing on the other side of 198. And so we came in to talk about what was available as far as land, what were some of the rules and regs. We hadn't known anything. Gail Cooper was the head of the EDC at the time, and she said, well, your timing is perfect. We're going to put some things out for bid, and we'd like for you to consider looking at maybe developing something over here in Big Chief as opposed to going to the other side of 198 to do it. So we said fine. And we put in a proposal, and I guess about a month and a half later, we were shocked when we were called and said, hey, you're the people we want to do business with. You check out great, come on in and let's talk about it. So we put in a plan to build a hotel and a food court, which came right out of the city's long-term plan, the comprehensive long-term plan, where we looked at it and we read through it, and it said, hey, the people of Gun Barrel City said what they really want is more places to eat on the water, and they want a hotel to put their family and friends up when their houses are full. So we offered both of those things, and I guess we might have been the only ones, so they selected us. And then we sat down with the city to negotiate a deal, but we didn't know what we were building or why we were building it yet. Well, we knew why we were building it. We didn't know exactly what it was going to be. So we entered into an agreement with the city, which is a public-private partnership, and it said that the city would contribute some land, and we would do the rest, and that the city wanted a profit share. So we said, okay, that's fair. We looked at the value of the land at the time.
This is a partnership with the EDC and not the city.
Oh, I'm sorry, with the EDC, I'm sorry. It was a partnership with the EDC. So we looked at kind of a ratio of what would be fair to the EDC, and the answer came out to be, after a little bit of negotiation, that they would place the land into the project, and we would build something that was no less than $12 million, but could be as much as it needed to be. And the reason for that was that we just thought that the $12 million to basically $1 million ratio between the land's value and what we were going to build was a fair way to give the EDC 16.8% of the profits of the project for 25 years. As it turned out, the $12 million was substantially lower than the project today. And while we have no qualms and it's non-dilutable, the percentage stays the same. We just spend more money on the project. So having said that, we started off kind of on October 7th of 2021, looking around saying, okay, what can we build? What can we do here? And we started engaging engineers, and we had to do things like soil studies, and we had meeting with Judge McKinney over in Henderson County, because we wanted to use the PACE program, which was a special program that allows you to, we thought, quickly rebuild dilapidated properties and get us through some of the ordinances. It does help in the county. It does not help in the city. But anyway, we went through the PACE program and got that approved through Henderson County, and I don't know whether the city has availed itself of that for any other projects yet, but it's a valuable asset. Anyway, at that point, 2H Architects, which is Eve's company, started working on a model for the food pavilion. This is all starting in October. I'm just going through as we go. So back, and then up into November, we had our first meetings with TxDOT and the Tarrant Regional Water Department. We met with them a couple of times, but that started, and those were early on conversations about what can we do with TxDOT. Can we move a road? Can we put in a new marina? And so those questions kind of ran through. The first delay came with PACE. We were put on hold for about 4 months during those negotiations. We thought it was important to the project to have it, so that kind of slowed us down. Then we kind of rolled into January of 2022, and we decided we needed to accumulate some more land to make it a little bit easier. So we bought a house that is on the west side of the project, mostly so we could take down the boathouse and the house and have views from the hotel of the water. The second thing we did was we entered in with the city, the EDC entered into a contract to buy a 100 by 100 square foot, or 100 foot by 100 foot lot in between the parking lot that the EDC already owned and the waterfront property. And that turned out to be a little problematic. It turned out that the husband and the man who owned it and his ex-wife of 30 years were still both on the title of the property, and both of them wanted the proceeds, and neither would agree to give it to the other. And it is actually still in court, and it's not going to be settled until sometime in October. In the meantime, we just had to move forward, but that slowed us down because we actually just stopped and waited for a little while because we thought that would be a very quick solution, and it wasn't. After that, now we're into April of 2022, and we started filling out forms. We selected Hilton as our preferred hotelier, And that's mostly because back in the 90s, I was involved with building and renovating the Tutwiler Hotel in Birmingham, Alabama, and it was Hilton that did it with us, and they were wonderful to work with, so I've kind of always been a Hilton fan. So we started working with Hilton. We filled out all of the applications, and I brought our approval, and that was in October 12th of 2022. We got our Hilton approval to be a Hilton Tapestry Hotel. So with that in hand, we just started to really dig in. Eve hired Roush Architecture out of Dallas, which was a Hilton-approved architectural firm. We were introduced to Purpose Lodging. I actually knew the CEO from the Birmingham days, but Purpose Lodging is a Hilton preferred management company, and they would come in and run the hotel for us once it was built. We hired the civil engineers out of Arlington that Joe Mundo is working with right now, SBI, also a fairly well-known engineering firm. We hired structural engineers, we hired landscaping engineers, we hired lighting engineers and architects, and we got that whole team put together, and that was done around September 1st of 2022, and then the work really started. We went and got feasibility and appraisals done to make sure that what we were going to build was going to work, because at this point we had a team assembled, but we didn't know if we should build a 500-room hotel or a 10-room hotel. So you hire firms. In our case, we hired HVS, and they went out and they sampled everything around here for a couple hundred miles, including the Rockwall projects. And they came back with a recommendation that we should build a boutique hotel in the 60 to 70 room range with 25 to 5,000 square feet of banquet space. And they really wanted us to have some kind of retail presence next to it, which is now our food pavilion, just to drive traffic and to make it successful. So that all started in earnest in September of 2022, and since then, I guess it says here that, Joe, our first call with you was December 15th of 2022. So we started to share information with Mr. Mundo and the city then. In March, we met with the ECC Water and Sewer. That's going to turn out to be a very interesting, transaction all by itself. We had more meetings with TxDOT now that we knew what we were going to do, and we kind of rolling through the project. And so I don't know if there are any delays. It seems like it's a natural progression when I looked at this. And besides the Sandy Shores issue and besides the issue with PACE, I don't know that we really could have gone much faster. And please remember, COVID was going on in the middle of all this. So getting people on the phone, getting people to come to work, you all know it. It was a little bit more difficult than it had been before COVID, and certainly more difficult than it is today. So I don't know if there are a lot of delays. I know it seems like it's taken a long time. For us, it sure has. But, I think it's probably a reasonable time frame to get where we are today. And with Mr. Mundo's help, we're 60 days away from presenting to the city the plan. Hilton has accepted and approved our Eve's designs, so we know what the outside looks like. We know how many rooms it is. We know what the interiors are going to look like. And, we're getting very close.
Thank you, Mr. Haynes. I appreciate it. Robin, I think at this time we probably need to turn this over to our moderators. If you would introduce them, please, and we'll get to citizens' comments.
Our moderators this evening are Bob Durant and Cherie Durant. Cherie will hold up a yellow flag when you have 30 seconds left and a red flag when you have 10 seconds left. Bob Durant will call up the speakers as they signed up, and you'll each have 3 minutes to speak.
My name is Bob Durant, and I'm the Harbor Point POA president. This is Cherie, my wife. So we noticed a huge disconnect, lots of stories, lots of rumors, lots of information that we couldn't control. We couldn't figure out if it's true or not, and neither could you. And so we're all in the same boat. So we kind of wanted to be a neutral party on your behalf and on their behalf and kind of sit in the middle and get this ball rolling. So they were kind enough, when we requested to have this public forum, Robin was kind enough to get this going right away. And thank you guys all very much for doing this and you guys making the trip down here and for this special meeting. So I have a handful of questions. If you have a question, you haven't given me a form yet, come on up here, fill out a form, give it to me. I'll call you. We'll go through this. If we have more questions, we'll fill out another form and do more questions. But we'll have a cutoff here, and if we run out of time, you can send the questions to us or to Robin, and we'll get them answered and get them online. But there's more information. So let's get this going. First person to speak, Carrie Kirksmith. If you could just head on over to the podium and state your question.
Howdy, y'all. I'll skip the pronouns and titles. Just howdy. All right, thank you all very much for allowing us to speak and address this, because a lot of times we as citizens don't hear about this stuff till it's already on us. I think that Mr. Mundo hit it right on. One of my main concerns is infrastructure and how we're going to handle this, because we have a small town. We already have traffic problems. So I'm just hoping that that we really are looking forward to what, if this is going to be the big, beautiful deal that we're hoping this is going to be, then it's going to bring a lot of people. We're going to need more sidewalks. It'd be nice to have bicycle lanes, things like that in this town. We don't have traffic lights and things, and I'm not expecting you all to do, everything that we need to, do. But I would hope that as developers that you'll pay it forward to this community. You live in Trinidad, that's great. You're on the lake, right? So I'm sure you can appreciate that. I've worked for one of the greatest CEOs ever, Aubrey McClendon with Chesapeake Energy. I don't know if y'all have ever heard of him. He asked us to buy mineral rights all in the Fort Worth area, right under people's houses, and run pipelines through downtown. We thought he was, just crazy, but he did it, and it happened. And Chesapeake Energy turned out to be a very profitable company. I think you all will be able to do the same thing, mining, the tourist business here. But Aubrey gave back to the communities that he took advantage of as a businessman. So that's all I'm asking. Would you all pay it forward a little bit and stick with us after you've done, because this project looks sexy. It looks great. We all want to see something like this in our dreams. Let's make the dream come true, but not at the cost of backing us up and making us into a worse of a traffic nightmare than Dallas. I mean, none of us really want to. We moved from Dallas or the big cities, or we're lucky enough to be born. I was born 54 miles from here, but that's still Dallas. That was Dallas. But I'm glad to be here where there's not that much traffic, not that much congestion. I don't want to see our city blow up without the infrastructure. So thank you very much for your time and consideration on this. And by the way, I've never paid anybody. This is kind of a little bit of an anecdotal thought here, but in Gun Barrel City, I've never paid anybody money for a job that they didn't finish and been, shall we say, not get burned. So I hope that's not, an appropriate observation. But has anybody here ever given somebody money in advance before the job got done? Anyway, thank you.
I would like to address your two concerns on traffic. And we did have 2 traffic studies done, and they said in the traffic studies, because the hotel is only 62 rooms, so it doesn't really have much of an impact. And the food pavilion they thought would add about 3% traffic to the to that bridge side where the project is on Big Chief. But most of the traffic would come from the 25,000 cars that already go back and forth on 334. They would just stop in for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. So, we are looking forward, and that's why we asked if the second study was for a traffic light to see if it would make a difference, specifically for the people that live in the Jeffrey Circle and Big Chief, getting out of their property onto the highway. And just the fact of moving the entrance down from where it is, down a couple, 1,000 feet, would help an awful lot with the acceleration and deceleration. So we did look at that. And then on the giving back portion, we have allocated almost 20% of the land space to public use. The rotunda all around the water, and the splash parks, and the amphitheater, and the marina is all public property. It does not belong to us.
Are you done with the answer? Okay. Next person is Gary. I can't see Gary. Gary, I can't read. Is that Damon? There you are. There he is. I couldn't find you.
was my handwriting in Catholic school. It's terrible. I want to thank everybody I want to thank you guys for having this meeting. I've just got really one question at this point in time. The original project, I was under the impression that it was about $12 billion, give or take, maybe 14. I'm not holding anybody to that. It's currently at 26. I understand there were two feasibility studies done, one in 2021 and the other in 2023. The one in 2021 pegged the room rate at 210 a night, is what I understand. And the one in 2023 pegged the room rate at 253 a night. Two questions. A project that started off as 14 million is now 26 million, give or take. It might have made sense, all the numbers and so forth, at 14 million, and I don't understand if it still makes sense at 26 million to the city and to the population and to the pass-on revenue. I'll put it that way. It's just a question I don't have an answer to, and that's why I'm asking it. The other question that I have is that the room rate, you get up around 240, 250. There isn't a hotel in this town that charges that. You can go to the newly developed place over here at 85 a night, and it's nice. I'm trying to figure out who's going to be paying that. We don't have events coming into the city right now, such as the Quilters Guild, the lawnmower races, the fishing tournaments, and the 4th of July Festival. Those people aren't going to be paying those. When you get up around $250, you can go get an Airbnb for about the same money. So I'm just wondering where the numbers come together, and I'd love to see something put out there detailing the numbers. Or if anybody wants to give any explanation now, that's fine. But that's all I have to say, and I appreciate your time. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you. Those are good questions. And as the investors and people who are putting their money up, we looked at it very, very carefully. First, it's a little bit of a disconnect. The 14 million was, again, it was a very early number, and it was for the hotel only. So when you add on the food pavilion and all of the other things, it's how we get to 23, 24. And if you look at the numbers, things that drive me personally as a developer crazy is the bank made us put in a $1.8 million interest reserve. They made us put in a $1.4 million building contingency reserve. So at the end of the day, there's almost $4.5 million of reserves that if we build this correctly and on time and do it well, never gets spent. But it's in the budget, and you have to basically pay the fee to the bank to borrow enough money to cover it in case COVID happens again, which is really what they were doing. So it's not quite as bad as it looks. The feasibility study is quite interesting. We asked them, does this work? And they went and took a look at all of the other things that were built in and around lakes in rural areas within 100 miles of major metropolitan areas. And they came back with the 252, the 212, and then up to the 252, and actually up to 275 and 280 after stabilization. And some of the answers were quite interesting to us. One is Hilton. They have the largest rewards program in the world. And sitting between Dallas and Waco and Fort Worth, they came up with something like 700,000 people that have points that would come down for a weekend at the lake or to bring their family down, and they're going to fill that place up in only 62 rooms. It just doesn't take very much of those people coming down here to get on the lake for a couple of days to spend it, and it's free money to them because it's just rewards points. Hilton pays us for putting people up in their hotel. So that was the first kind of thing that was an eye-opener. The second thing was just events, because there isn't something on the water anywhere around here to go and have a large family reunion or a really beautiful wedding. And with the amount of money that is poured into this lake since COVID and before, and some of the beautiful homes and some of the wealthy people, if they are going to have an event at their house, they want something like this kind of facility to be able to have their bachelor party or their either weddings or whatever events can happen. And they would like to come down here and show off what they have, but they can't always put 20 people up in their home. So those are the two big feeders that came back that surprised me. So they were talking, when they went through it, and you can look at the feasibility study, it was pretty easy. You're going to get 8 people, 10, 10 rooms, eight rooms on the weekends, just people that just want, they're yuppies. Well, I call them yuppies. Now they're millennials. They can come down from Dallas. They're husband and wife. They both have jobs, no kids, and they'll come down here to be on the water, to rent a boat, to kayak, or whatever they want to do. And then we're going to get 8 or 10 rooms that are going to be rewards points, and we're going to get one event, and it's going to be another 10 or 12 rooms. And when they add it all together, we were running at a 68 to 70% occupancy in a 62-room hotel, and it was packed in the summer. It was busy in the holidays for Christmas and Thanksgiving and spring break, and it was really big right after graduation in May, and then it ran, 50, 60% occupancy in the coldest part of winter and in the shoulders. And, we did some homework too. We went down to the medical facility here, and we asked them, the East Texas Health Facility, and asked them how many people need a room to take care of their kids or, their parents when their parents go to the hospital. And it was a couple of rooms. And then we talked to Lowe's and we talked to Walmart, and they have people that travel through here regularly, and they'll take a couple of rooms. And when we kind of added it all up, 62 rooms is not a very big hotel to, to fill up. And because you get Hilton Rewards points, it makes a difference to these people because they're business people. They'd much rather stay at a hotel, expense it, and get their points than they would to stay at a motel and get nothing. So I hope that answers your question.
Will that feasibility study be shared or available for us to see?
The EDC has it. It's both of them have been there, and I'm sure if they would, it belongs to YNS, and we're happy for you to read it. But quite honestly, we don't want copies made and taken out. There's some proprietary information in there.
Plus, we have the results up here. Am I right, Robin? Yeah, we have results that are
Yeah,
summarized.
the new update basically gives you the main points. But anybody that would like to review the feasibility studies, I do have copies in my office. No pictures can be taken, but you are welcome to review them.
Thank you very much.
If I can add something real quick
go ahead.
there, just, I'm already thinking about all the open records requests we might get. And the AG's office on copyrighted material will generally say, yeah, it's public, but you get to review and you have to comply with the copyright laws. So, yeah, I guess the review is something that you all can do, but if it's copyrighted and if you think you can get copies, the EDC would only say, they'd make it available for public viewing, but it's upon the individual, upon the requester to comply with the copyright laws.
All right, thank you.
Hopefully that, keep the open records requests to a minimum, I guess.
It won't.
Because you can view them.
All right, the next question is from Joni Robertson.
Well, I've been here an hour, and I've learned a lot. If you go to Google and you do Hilton Tapestry, you already see the hotel listed. Gun Barrel, there's a hotel in Plano for $110, same Tapestry. So this is a great, great plan. The only problems I have is, are we crossing our dots, crossing our T's and dotting our I's? This is a legal document. In the few minutes I've been here, I've Googled the addresses of YNS services. They are at Love Field in a hangar that anybody could just vacate overnight. Pier 334 is even more interesting. It's at a UPS PO box. So if they default, who do we go look for? You can't go to a PO box and collect money from a PO box. So I came here I went through all the EDC meetings with the last guy. So I came here to try and be sold by the new guy. So this is not a good start for me. I want to know, if you default on the city of Gun Barrel, how are we going to get our money? If we start building roads, if we start doing things like that, we don't know you. You're just another guy that just showed up. So that's my concern. But I think it's a great project, and I'd like to hear more on you selling yourself to us. We all have very many concerns. We went through the Landry years. We've gone through the EDC wanting to build a gun range with the NRA. I mean, we have gone through so much in this city. We've got to watch our dollars. So my question was, why the P.O. boxes? Why can't we get good addresses on a legal document? So I don't know if an attorney can answer that question. I don't know if he can answer that question. He has another address he could provide. But this is a legal document. I have one at home on my house.
Yeah, I mean,
So-
for any performance agreement, if there's a breach, generally what we do, one, the EDC has to determine, if and when there's a breach. And if so, then we send them a notice of default letter. And that.
If it goes to a P.O. box at a UPS
The notice of
box.
default letter would go to the address on the agreement. It would also go to the registered agent.
That's it.
The registered agent as well, listed on that, on those entities.
Okay.
And so from there, we would start there, and usually the default letter would say you got 30 days to cure if it's one of those that can be cured within 30
Okay.
days.
And for YNS services, someone named Evie Hopen. Is Evie Open here?
Yes.
You're Evie Hopen. Okay. So y'all are a team? It's the two of you we're buying? Okay. I had another question for the EDC, but I didn't write it down. The $300 breakdown, we spent $300,000 before anything even started. Where can I get a breakdown of that? How much he made, how much other people made? Where can we, the citizens, get a copy of that $300,000?
Are you talking about the $300,000 that was spent to buy additional property?
No, it's listed as an outside expenditure. If you look on here, it's listed as an outside expenditure, $300,000 before
On what
any other
document?
costs. Also, another question I have is, we
On
can
what
look at their books.
Hey, Joni, let's just do the question you did, and
Okay.
we'll get back in
On,
line.
on
We
what
gotta-
document are you looking at that expense?
Well, I just had it. This one that said the amount? Okay. It stood out. I'm a P&L person. I was a general manager, so I can spot a P&L. Let me see. Here it is, page 18 of 26. Project consulting pre-opening, $300,000. I'd just like to see what that was. How much did he get?
0.
Page 18 of 26. So these are all just hypothetical questions. I'm sure there's no quick answer. But they were very obvious to me in just the hour I've been looking at this.
I can give you a quick answer on the Love Field address. We've been there for 10 years. We leased the property from the city of Dallas. Eve Hopen went in and redesigned an old Cessna sales office into our executive offices, and we house our accounting staff there and our executives. It's all of a 5-minute drive from Highland and University Park, which is very convenient to most of the executives in my company. And we also kept our plane there for a long time.
I know exactly where it is. There are about 12 businesses in there. When I Googled it, you got a long list of names of everyone at that address. So I just wanted to bring that to the attention of the EDC. Thank you.
Did you have anything else to say up here to that, or we're good?
Well, I'll try to answer that
Sure.
300,000. What that agreement provides is a definition of qualified expenditures. That basically the agreement says that the developer would spend $12 million by a certain date, and to meet this. Did I say 300,000? No. Okay, they would spend 12 million, and then that, if I may finish.
Does that include the Hilton licensing fee?
Okay.
If you're the default, do we get to keep the name Hilton?
The 300,000 that I'm looking at,
That wasn't a question.
it says project consulting pre-opening expense. And so some of these expenses may not occur. This is their best guess on what the qualified expenditures would be to, total that $12,873,361. And so those are, I guess, an estimate, a good faith estimate as to what the budget would be for that hotel. Whether or not that's been spent, I'd have to, I don't know. But that's, in the agreement trying to identify what are the qualified expenditures under the statute that the EDC can fund. That's not saying those were spent dollars as of today.
I just want to make one thing clear, just so I understand. YNS and the EDC are partnered to create the Pier 334 project, correct?
That's correct.
So the Pier 334 is two of you together. So I think that's a valid question that you have. If you default and just up and leave and move to Barbados, basically you're left with a project. So that's what I think the question is since they don't know you, just making sure that if you guys did up and leave or default completely, what are we left with?
The EDC is left with improved property. We maintain the property.
So we don't lose money.
And we do have deeds of trust on $500,000 and $2 million on the different pieces of property.
Right. Thank you.
True. True. That's fortunately or unfortunately, that's any EDC project. I represent a number of EDCs, and lenders, banks will not lend money if they're going to be in a second lien position. A lot of times I've done projects where the EDC was the first lender, and then the bank comes along and says, hey, we got to do a subordination agreement because we're not going to loan money unless we're in the first lien position. So that is very typical for an EDC to be in a second lien position or worse. It's just the, given banks lending probably the majority of monies, that's just the way it is.
Okay, thank you, guys. The next person is Terry Morris.
Hi. Okay, I'm just coming into all this, so I really don't know that much about it. I'm just kind of hearing what other people are saying and then what I've heard around town, rumor or not, I don't know. My questions are, so basically this thing is supposed to last for 7 years before it's even done, but this means that my property taxes are already increasing, so I have to pay for this before there's any benefit to it? And have there been any non-disclosure agreement signed with anybody from the city or anybody else that has knowledge of the question she was asking about the money? That's really all.
I'm not sure I understand where 7 years is involved. The building process will take between 18 and 24 months. And during that time, I'm sorry?
Okay, so I had heard 7 years something earlier, but 18 months, in that term, they're already raising taxes. So, I mean, my taxes are already going up. So are we already paying on money that you guys, and the project has already started?
The Henderson County runs your property taxes, and they are only allowed to raise them 10% in a year, and you're always allowed to appeal them or protest them. Property taxes rising, it happens every year. During the process of building this project, we will actually get more sales tax revenue because they'll be buying supplies locally.
But then too, with everything coming in and all the improvements that have to be made, doesn't that raise my taxes and everybody else's?
It's possible that it raises, property tax goes to Henderson County. The city
yeah,
does not have.
Let me chime in.
I was just going to add on your property tax, go and contest it, because I did that last year for our properties, and they worked with me, and we had a considerable decrease. When there was an arbitrary raise on every single property, especially the interior properties, for no reason if they hadn't been improved, they immediately just took it back down to the previous year. So just go ask. And I spent the 6 hours doing it, but it was worth it. So hopefully that helps.
I would add, property taxes and appraisals are two different things. I represent a number of cities, and I get, the podium, and they beat up the city council for raising their taxes, and the city council says, we just reduced our tax rate. So they may reduce their tax rate, but it's the appraisals. If the appraisals go up, that may result in a increase in property taxes, but the governmental body, that, the city council, understand we don't have property tax here, but for other cities, those entities may be reducing their property tax, the rate, but the appraisals are going up, and that's due to the appraisal district. That's, and the school district, the county, the cities, they have no control over the appraisal district and what they appraise property at. So, yeah, your tax liability is based on two things, your appraisal and the tax rate, and one may be going down, but the other's going up, which then results in you paying more. So I hope that helps.
Thank you. Next person is Bob Jenkins. Did I get that right? Go for it.
Bob had submitted some questions just earlier this afternoon, and they should be in front of each of the panelists.
Oh, you have those?
Yes, sir.
I didn't know I was supposed to submit them here. I did it online.
That's okay.
But then, since then, I've been hearing all these discussions and have a lot more. My name is Bob Jenkins. I'm a 20-year resident of 20-plus year resident of Gun Barrel City. I'm 83 years old, and I'm no expert. I used to be an expert, but it's been 25 years since I've even said I was an expert. I came tonight to get facts, more facts than I had before. I stopped by the EDC office, and I apologize, I just stopped by one time, and I was given a one-page sheet of information on Pier 134. I said, is this all you have on Pier 334? Said yes, and then I got a spiel on how great it was going to be for the city of Gun Barrel. I want you to know that if we have an $18 million or $28 million hotel on the lake and it's successful, I'm all for it. I know it'd be just like a Walmart or just like a Lowe's, but tonight I came to get facts. I've heard from an attorney and a civil engineer and the developers. And tonight's the first time I've even heard of a feasibility study. I've asked people about feasibility studies, and I was not aware. I am happy to know that I can come by the office and read the feasibility study. So that would maybe answer a lot of my questions. I didn't quite understand how tonight, I'm not going to go over my questions. They were pertinent to, one question was, why did the current cost projections jump from 12 million to 28 million? And I have no idea how that could happen. $28 million is something like 350 or more, $350,000 per room. And I know that includes this and all that. But a $200 room rate, I remember from the olden day, doesn't cut it on an $28 billion project at $350,000 per room. It just doesn't. Didn't 25 years ago, nothing I could do now. We have one motel, franchise motel. It used to be a La Quinta, but it couldn't cut it as a La Quinta. I would have loved it. Civil engineer doesn't say anything about feasibility. The attorney doesn't say anything about feasibility. The developers say they have a feasibility study that says $200 room, 200 in the mid 200s. Someone said there's a. Anyway, that's it. Just I'm looking forward to reading the feasibility study, and maybe I can ask the EDC directly some questions.
Mr. Jenkins, I'd like to address one of those. I think we discussed just a little earlier exactly how that number jumped and where those numbers came from. Maybe you didn't hear that, and if you didn't, Stephen, could you maybe reiterate? I think it was one of the questions I think Gary had earlier is how the money's changed, why it started at 14 and then it went to. If you give that quick synopsis, I think that would help Mr. Jenkins.
Sure. The 14 million was never the cost of the project. It was a minimum amount of money that we agreed to spend to provide the EDC with their 16.8% ownership in the project. When we actually got into developing the project and looking at it, the prices started somewhere right around 20 million. And in fact, I could tell you that we have a very detailed line item budget that was worked through with the appraisers and with the feasibility company. But there's about, in round numbers, $2 million of soft costs, and that's engineering and all sorts of the costs associated with paying for the feasibility studies, hiring the engineers and the architects, getting all of the land surveys, all of the geotechnical information, all of the environmental reports done. That stuff has all been done and paid for. That's right at $2 million today. The construction budget for the hotel and for the pavilion, just the shell finish project is about $15 million in construction costs, which puts it somewhere around $17 million.
How many in construction costs?
Roughly
Dollars in construction costs?
Roughly $15 million in construction cost. And we've got a little over $3.5 million in FF&E, which is all the furniture that goes inside, all the lights, the drapes, the carpet, all of the things that go along with the hotel. We have 2 commercial kitchens we've got to put in there. We've got the commercial laundry that goes in there, the spa, the workout facilities, all that stuff winds up being an awful lot of money. And then we've got another $3.5 million, which is what makes me sick, which are the reserves that the bank makes us put in case we don't build it on time and on budget. There's an extra $3.655 million in the budget for contingencies. So that gets us right around 23
One last
to
point, if I
24 million.
may.
Yep.
One thing I do remember from my olden days is that construction costs, no matter if it costs $18 million to build, it does not mean it's worth $18 million if it can't produce the income to warrant that cost. That I remember. And we have a franchise motel here that's under $100 per night. And when you talk about $250 a room rate, which is very low, when a lender looks at this, he looks at around 70 to 75% occupancy. It's just 55 rooms. With whatever it is now, it's not a La Quinta, but it's nowhere near 50% occupancy. And we're cyclical. That means you have to have 75% occupancy during the summer and the winter.
Hey, Bob, I'm gonna cut you off on that one. I think if you go in and read those feasibility studies, I think if you go in and read those feasibility studies, they're going to answer a lot of those questions.
I appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. Next person, Kathy Nailing. There you go. Did I say it right?
Hi, I'm Kathy Nailing. I've lived in Gun Barrel for about 29 years, 94. What does that make it? 29 years I've lived here. My question is I understand where Joni was coming from because she's been here a long time, and she remembers when the Heritage Cove went in, and the lawyer may remember it too if he's been doing it since 2004, because I think that happened in 2005 or 6. Mm-hmm. And the developer, my understanding, because I worked for the newspaper, I retired from the newspaper after 31 years down here. So my understanding is the developer filed bankruptcy and just disappeared and was never seen again. Well, he was seen again, actually, because he went to Corsicana, he bought a business, then he moved to Athens, where he passed away, in Athens. Ken Landers was his name. But he's out here to defend himself, so I don't want to talk about him. But I think, has the EDC or the city or anybody done anything to make sure something like that does not happen again to us? Because the EDC was left holding the bag, and that was a La Quinta hotel, and La Quinta wouldn't even take part in that hotel because it wasn't up to their standards, they said. And I just know that from working for the newspaper. They told us that at the paper, that the hotel was not up to their standards, so they wouldn't have anything to do with it after Ken Landers left this area. And he filed bankruptcy, and he got on the water board and everything down here. People really trusted him a lot. I mean, you might have met him. I don't know. The attorney might have met him. But he was very trustworthy. But I didn't trust him because he refused absolutely refused to have an interview with the newspaper. He just turned us down every chance he got. When we'd call him to do an interview with us, he was always no.
Ms. Malin, if I could address that, I'd just like to say I've been here through, and I know a lot of the board members can attest to this. We've been through this for a long time and been through the struggles with Mr. Haynes and his team, and we're going on what, almost 2 years now. I don't think Mr. Haynes is going anywhere. He wouldn't have gone through all this or put up some of the money and gone to the trouble that
Well, that's
he's
what we
gone
thought about
through
Ken Landers,
and
too.
jumped
He was
through.
very trustworthy.
Well, I'm
I'm not saying he's not, 'cause I don't know this
because
stuff.
I never drive my car looking in the rearview mirror. I just don't do that. So all I
Oh,
can
you should
speak
down here.
for is
Absolutely.
what we have here, okay? And we have a real opportunity, and this is, I think I speak for everyone on our board, and if I'm speaking out of turn, please somebody speak up, but I think he's very trustworthy, and he's also a very credible and a man of integrity, and we feel very comfortable with him.
Okay, that's great. And I don't know him, so you probably are a lovely person. But my question is, does the EDC or the city have anything to protect themselves from something happening like happened with Heritage Cove? That Heritage Cove
I think
was
our
supposed to
attorney
be
can
a
speak to
real-
that.
Huh?
I think our attorney can speak to that.
That's what I was asking him. I was asking the attorney that.
I was just waiting for my, opportunity to jump in.
Okay, go ahead.
I guess, unfortunately, for EDCs, or even for cities or any other, deal, anybody can always go to, with a petition, file bankruptcy. And there's really not a lot to stop, an EDC or city from doing that. Now, what we've done is contractually, contractually bind them to do what they say they're going to do. We have a deed of trust on the two pieces of property, for the 6 acre tract and the I guess Big Chief, the 1.72 acre tract. And so we've got deeds of trust that if need be foreclose on those and get, basically get the properties back. I think as this one gentleman said, we may be second in line, but that's the nature of the beast with EDCs, and when you have banks lending money, that's the reality an economic development corporation has to deal with. But so I don't know if that gives you a lot of comfort, but contractually we have in place, in my view, what we need to have in place, via the performance agreement. State law requires us to have a performance agreement, and then also, have a deed of trust on the property. That's not to say, somebody could, file bankruptcy. That's, I'm not suggesting Mr. Haynes is going to do that, but, another.
Yeah, and unfortunately, he's got to deal with what we've already been through.
In other situations, I've seen it, like, the hotel project you're talking about. And so that can happen, I think we've done, we've papered it the best we could to protect the EDC. But again, a lender's bank's always going to be a first lien position on the property.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
We've got 3 more questions, so we're going to probably call it done at 8 o'clock. Sound good? Okay. Scott Kirsch.
Hi, good evening. My name is Scott Kirsch, and thank you first and foremost for hosting this town hall. I'm not a citizen of Gun Barrel. I am a citizen of Trinidad, and not only in addition to being a citizen of here at the lake, I also own a corporation that is a meeting, events, and incentives corporation that specializes in bringing groups, corporations, pharmaceutical companies, all types of corporations to these type of hotels and these type of resorts. I've owned this company and been in this business for 27 years, and so I know there's a lot of talk that room rate of $250 seems excessive. I will tell you that that's pretty minimal in today's time for a Hilton. I can also tell you that I've done 27 years worth of business with Hilton Hotels, and that's globally around the world. And I will tell you that in my personal opinion, in my professional opinion, The Hilton Hotel has probably done more due diligence in their research with this gentleman than we could ever afford to do as a community here through the EDC. The Hilton doesn't just jump into a partnership with just anyone. So I'm confident that they've done their research and their due diligence to make sure that he is trustworthy and creditworthy of the agreement that they're entering into with him. So I look forward to what this project can bring to our community. It will bring a lot to our community. I have clients that are constantly looking for this type of hotel so that they can have board meetings, they can have board retreats, all those sort of things. So I think it will be a great positive addition to our community, not only for bringing outsiders in to focus on our community and highlight our community, but I think also too the tax base that it will bring to our community is a very positive thing. On another note, I will say as a resident of Trinidad, I would just be curious how many people in this room have taken the opportunity to explore what this gentleman has already done for the community of Trinidad itself. So if you come down and visit our downtown in Trinidad, you'll see that Stephen operates doesn't operate, but he owns a restaurant there, the Whistle Stop, that has been great to our community. And in addition to that, he has also participated and gone above and beyond for our substandard school district there to try to get our school district up to speed, to help them to further those students' educations. So I think that he's been an upstanding citizen of this community, and I think that he will continue to be that. He makes this lake his home, so he takes pride in the area that he lives in. And so I think this will be a great project, and I thank you for moving forward with it, and I thank the EDC for participating with him in this.
Thank you.
Did you guys have any comments at all?
That was pretty well said.
Yep. Thank you, Scott. Next person is Grace.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Grace Group Van Grapen. I live here. I'm a new resident for the last 2.5 years. I love Gun Barrel. I don't want Gun Barrel to go through what I went through in Arlington. I came from Arlington. When Arlington was a small town, we didn't have that much crime and that much problem in traffic and drugs and all that. But now, I was forced to get out because the crime increased so much after not just the ballpark change, but the football came in, and they talk about beautifully. I applaud. You'll have vocabulary that maybe I don't have it. Some people would think I'm too old. But let me tell you something. Age don't have nothing to do with living. One thing I know is that the more revenue it brings, the more crime it comes. The more beautiful the city look in some way, the crime will get here faster. I told you, I can sleep with the door open. When I was in Arlington, I lived there over 40 years. And now I had to make sure I'm in the middle. I was in the middle of Arlington. Everything was around me. Shootings, people get messed. The crime do come with the price. You might say it's going to be, yeah, I say it's beautiful. I read the whole thing. It looked wonderful, a lot of revenue, everything. It's beautiful, and the town might need something, but not that kind of price that I'm going to lose what I just got here. I sleep in peace. I feel so comfortable that I asked my daughter to move and to take a piece of my land to lay her mobile home there because it's quiet here, the whole town. I think Gun Barrel is a beautiful country, how do you say, country town, you know, where people are beautiful. There's a lot of good people in here. They smile at you. They talk to you. You feel family, friends. Arlington is not like that no more. I got 23 minutes. I got my timer, darling. So my thing is this. What are you going to do to prevent that? What you can do to help the senior citizen, like me. You know that there are now attacking people in the city, the older people like me. They grab the purse So if you have a purse, you better don't use a purse. You better use a, sorry, that's right. You better use a Walmart bag so they don't know it's your purse. Because the crime, it is true, the crime have increased so much. So what you can do for us, the senior citizen, you got to bring a business that is going to give revenue, is going to give job, opportunity to the young people. But with that is going to come a price. And I'd like to know what you're going to do to prevent that traffic coming through. We already have a little reputation here. I haven't seen it. But I want to know what you're going to do about it. Thank you. And believe me, God bless you.
Grace, Arlington is a much less place to live because you left there, and we are blessed to have you.
I love it here.
So I will tell you this. Part of this is going to help our infrastructure, and part of that infrastructure is police, fire, those type of people that we can hire with an increased amount of revenue to our city so we can be safer. And we need more of that. And you're exactly correct. You have to watch that. And you've been witness to that. And your points are very, very valid, but that's the answer that I have for you, that's what we would try to do with a lot of that money and that revenue is build that infrastructure to keep everyone safe and make this a desirable city that you wanted to come and that your daughter wanted to come to.
Darling, when the football park start building, they give us a lot of promise.
I know.
They tell us that we're going to be safe, it's not going to happen traffic. But you know what? Where's the trash can? Because I don't see it here. That's exactly the same thing. Worse, went downhill. They didn't give us what they offer us. And actually, everything went skyrocket. I was forced to sell because I love my house over there. I was so comfortable.
Just have faith in His grace.
Oh, I got faith in God.
Okay. It's
That's the
going to
only
be
one
good,
I
I
do.
promise. Thank
God
you so
bless.
much, though. You're
Thank
an
you.
awesome individual.
Thank you, Grace. We got one more question from Maul Smith. Did I get the first name right? You may have left. Does anybody else have any more questions? You okay if we just...
I just want to remind people that this tax is a state tax for sales. When you buy something, they deduct that tax. A percentage of it goes to the EDC, and the EDC utilizes that money for things like this. Your money is not affected as far as property or anything else. It's only affected in what you buy. It goes directly, a very small percentage, I believe it's 2% to the EDC. So if we lose out, that's too bad, I'm sorry. But we have not personally lost anything. I just want to make that clear, that the people are not affected by this tax, this money that we're generating for government.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Did-
Thank you for that. It's true, the city is run on 2% sales tax revenue. 1.5% of that runs the city, and 1/4% of that is going to Streets Department, and 1/4% goes to our EDC.
How much of that comes directly from Lowe's?
Lowe's, Lowe's and Walmart, yes. Lowe's and Walmart together are almost 50%. Exactly, or if a disaster happened, or even if they just closed for a few months, it would be devastating.
So, and I have one more question, if that's all right. So I know we got the timelines on approvals and going through iterations of the drawings and the planning, et cetera. What is our projected break ground date? I don't know if I caught that. I heard September was, we're through all the iterations, but would that be our break ground date? Is September?
When plans are approved by the city council,
Right. I think, when we gave the timeline, that's so you have sort of a feel for where the project is. City planning and zoning will take the time that, whatever time they need, that they require to come to terms with the project. The city council then will do the same after that. the city staff will, in their preferred mode, they will not recommend the project to the Planning and Zoning Commission until they feel that it meets these requirements. And that's our role at Mundo and Associates, to measure and rate whether it does or doesn't meet, advise the EDC and their developer, and go back and forth. We've given an estimate, but there's no guarantee. And a lot of it, to be very candid, a lot of it will depend upon the pace at which the developer moves forward. That's just pure and simple. Anybody will understand that. He's got architects and engineers working for him. If you go anywhere today, tomorrow, yesterday, you see lots of construction going on. Everybody's very busy. He has to compete with those companies for their time to do his job, because they're doing other people's jobs as well. I'm guessing we've got 2 more iterations. I'm guessing each one is 30 days each. I'm guessing city planning and zoning 30, city council 30. That is purely just a guess. I wouldn't hang my hat on it, but it's our hope for the city of Gun Barrel City that we have worked for 15 years. It's our hope that end of the summer, early fall, that you all see a groundbreaking on that project. We understand, having been involved here for 15 years, that your only revenue is sales tax. That's unusual. That's not the norm across the Metroplex. That's your bloodstream relative to revenue to pay for your city services. And there's a barren piece of concrete out there that's not generating a penny for you, not a single penny. And at no cost to the city or the city residents. Think of this. At not a single penny of cost out of city coffers or out of individual resident taxes or budgets or assessments or whatever. This project is moving forward. That's pretty unusual if you think about it. And I mean, in most, if you, that's a pretty good bet. If you think of it from a betting term, that's a pretty good deal. But it still has to be done correctly, and that's the task at hand. So there's some hoops to jump over, but maybe Labor Day maybe that's the celebration.
Go for it. We have a couple more minutes.
I have one other pre-submitted question that I can answer as well. Go ahead, Kate.
No, go.
Okay.
My name's Kate Weller. I'm on the EDC board, as well as I am chair of planning and zoning. I have one comment and then a clarification, I hope. My comment is, we've heard a lot tonight about the cost doubling. I think it's important to say to people, that doesn't double anything for the EDC. Those doubling costs are for YNS and Mr. Haynes and his investors. They are saying we thought we could invest $12 million, but it's going to take our investment of $28 million. It doesn't affect any of the money that would come from the EDC. My question of clarification is, I know we asked early on, I think maybe I missed the answer. If the $500,000 loan goes to the voters in November and the voters turn it down, what effect will that have on Pier 334?
I'll answer as to the agreements. We still have the existing amended and restated performance agreement. So that is still in place. dealing with, deals with the 6-acre property, the 1.72 acre. In the agreement, it refers to as the additional property. We have deeds of trust on those properties. And so, I mean, we still have agreements in place. I guess the question is whether or not that 500,000 keeps, you know, the developer from being able to develop. I can't answer that.
I can. I'm doing some math right now, so I can give you an exact answer of what would change. If you give me 1 second. Okay. So what would happen was, so first, again, going back to our updates, Eve and I sat down with the EDC on March 30th of 2023 to give them our update. And what we said was to the EDC, and I'm reading from my notes, from the type notes that I take for all these meetings, the bank has concerns about the rise in the interest rates, and our interest rate in particular had climbed from 4.75% to 9.75% because we're going through the USDA. And since and as a result, the bank has asked YNS to, one, put up an additional $1.5 million in cash to cover additional interest expense, and two, put up personal guarantees from Eve and myself for the project, which we agreed to do. So we put up our cash. It's in a checking account. The EDC knows it. They've seen it. And we did sign personal guarantees on the loans. And the EDC, to their credit, said, hey, we have money. We're making nothing on it. If we made a loan to you, would that help ease some of the pain of these interest rate raises? So I said, well, sure, that would be great. We would love that. And the EDC offered to give us a $500,000 2% loan for 10 years, which would allow us basically not to have to borrow an additional $500,000 from our bank at 9.75%. And that savings over the life of the loan would have been about $400,000, which is enough to put nicer landscaping in or other things that the interest is sucking out of us. So that's what it was. We were very grateful. It is not going to stop the project. We just really appreciated the good faith that the EDC extended to us. And, all I can say is, even if it doesn't come to fruition, thank you very much. We really did appreciate it.
Thank you, and I appreciate that clarification. It was offered as an incentive to the developer because of some of the delays and the high interest rates that were going up. So it was not requested by them. It was offered as an incentive, which is what we do as an EDC.
We just got one more question from Cindy over there, and then Robin, if you could read that one question, we'll be done.
Okay. Hi, I'm Cindy Key. I'm currently on the City Council, and this question is for Mr. Moore. In our City Council workshop yesterday, one of the items was to have an outside real estate attorney read over the contracts to see if they were valid at an estimated cost of $500 per hour. My objection was that I don't believe a real estate attorney would be the appropriate type of attorney. It would need to be someone who is well-versed in contracts. And I believe that would be more your specialty.
Why, thank you. I mean, I guess the real estate attorney could look at the deeds of trust. As far as EDCs, state law says they have to enter into performance agreements. And so, yeah, I've done a number of performance agreements ever since I left the Attorney General's office back in 2003. And so I would say most real estate lawyers would not know the Development Corporation Act, which we have to utilize in drafting our performance agreements. But the deed of trust, yeah, they could look at that document and see. So I guess I'm splitting the answer. They could look at half of it and probably, maybe have a different style on doing a deed of trust, but not the performance agreement.
Really, the overall contract and agreement is something you're well versed in.
Yes, ma'am. Yeah, I've been doing this for 19 years. I've do the sales tax training that's mandated by the state. I've been doing that for 19 years. I think I know the sales tax better than about any other attorney in the state, without patting myself on the back. But yeah, I know it very well. I may not know much, but I know the Development Corporation Act, and so I know how to draft those performance agreements.
I'm sorry, I was rude. I missed you raising your hand. Go ahead.
Yes, hopefully he's here with us. Hi, my name's Keith Bond, and I'm on the EDC. I live at 262 Overlook Trail. I just wanted to try to do a little clarification from a conversation that I had with Robin about this loan. That, yes, the EDC, our job is to offer, to bring business in, to generate sales tax. But what I was told was that Mr. Haynes came into the office and said, I don't know whether it was I'm in a bad way, I've got things going on, I'm thinking about postponing this project for 2 years. Am I incorrect?
Yes.
Okay, this is what Robin told me in a conversation, that you came in and
I invited him in.
Well, you invited him in, but that to not have it delayed for 2 years, you offered this loan as an incentive.
I offered this as incentive to keep from having to delay it.
Okay.
I don't know how long it might have been delayed.
Well,
but
in our
rates were
conversation,
going up.
it was told of 2 years.
I don't recall that. I'm sorry.
Okay. Well, I just wanted to make,
Okay.
again, Pier 334, I think can bring a lot of money and a lot into it. I just want to make sure the T's are crossed and the I's are dotted.
Same.
Thank you very much. We're concluded, so I'll let you guys close the meeting.
No, I just want to say this has been an incredible night, I think, for everybody. Kudos to everybody that spoke tonight. Everybody was very distinct, and the passion is well warranted, and it makes me proud, and I think it does everybody in the audience be a citizen of Gun Barrel City. So if there's no further ado, I'd like to adjourn this meeting.